Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live in the Mario universe? More specifically, Super Mario Galaxy 2? And I don't mean as Mario. I mean, what would it be like for you to live here? Like as a human in a survival situation. Sure, a spaceship built for a crew of 30 to take a cross-universal journey probably sounds like it would have everything you ever need. But what if you got stuck on some asteroid with this wizard who keeps chucking man-eating mushrooms at you? You got a plan for that? Well, if you don't, I got you covered. Because me and a crack team of survival experts consisting of, well, just me, have gone through every single level in Super Mario Galaxy 2 and determined just how long your average human could actually survive in them. Starting off with that one with the freaky wizard, the Yoshi Star Galaxy. With this in every galaxy in the game, we're going to be assuming that you start off in the exact same place Mario does, with the exact same resources he does. So you know, a shirt and some overalls? Basically nothing. We're going to have to survive based on the resources of the level itself. So, what do we have here to keep ourselves alive with? Well, this galaxy is a lush series of green asteroids, with a freshwater spring for some drinking water, a few piranha plants, beetles, these space Goomba things, and 11 pink fruit the size of a large dog. But before any of that, there is a problem we need to contend with. That being, this Kamek, who begins to assault Mario the moment he draws near. Now for Mario, this isn't really a problem. A mere loafer through the skull and he moves forward, indifferent to the life he has just taken. Like, I get these guys are trying to kill you first, Mario, but I don't know, you really don't need to yell Yahoo! And then do a little flip after you kill him. That just feels kind of disrespectful. These guys have fucking families, man. But what Mario does isn't of any concern to us. I mean, it is. It is very concerning, but not in terms of survival, because a regular human cannot jump 6 feet in the air and drive their feet through the skulls of their enemies. We need to engage this Kamek in a much more involved and tactical fight. These guys can teleport, throw fireballs, and even spawn Goombas into existence to attack us on his behalf. Actually, at first thought we could use these Goombas as a food source, but they poof out of existence after only a few seconds. Not something you typically want your food to be doing. These guys are here to kill us, and they will never provide us with anything other than adversity. Look, I'm gonna be honest here. I'm not gonna sit around and pretend I can kill a teleporting wizard who shoots fireballs at me while I run from his summoned minions. His abilities are a bit beyond my own. We do, however, have one advantage, and it is that he is an enemy in a video game for children. That is to say, he's dumb as fucking bricks. He knows Mario can stomp him easily, and yet barely even tries to dodge as he approaches, meaning he wouldn't try to dodge when we approach. So, here's the plan. We walk up to this Kamek and stab him to death with one of the spines off this plant. Is it an elegant plan? No. Will it fail if he uses even a fraction of his brain power? Yes, but it is the best plan we have, and I mean, if Mario can just walk up and murder this guy, so can we. But why do we want to stab this bitch when we could be the bigger man and just walk away instead? Well, aside from his smug and condescending aura, when we kill him, we are also rewarded with access to this Yoshi egg, which will instantly become the single most valuable resource we can obtain in this or any level in this game. You see, Yoshis are one of the few creatures in this game that respawn, meaning we have an easy source of infinitely replenishing meat. Now, to be fair, Yoshis are probably even harder to kill than Kameks. They're stronger than me, faster than me, and probably more intelligent. But none of that will be a concern to us, as these guys have made the fatal mistake of trusting humans from the moment they're born, giving us full control over their movement and allowing us to force them into lethal scenarios, at which point we can consume the corpse and dispose of the remains before getting another Yoshi. Gotta make sure you don't leave any evidence of your crimes around to arouse suspicion, you know? Honestly, we may not even need to clean up before finding another Yoshi. Have you ever talked to a baby before? Babies are fucking idiots. They just believe anything you say. Oh shit. You're hatching. That's so good. Your parents just left for some milk. Come on, let's hop over that pile of spikes together and go find them. And with that, a food source has been secured. And between this and the ground spring, we now have everything we need to survive here perpetually. Now there is one downside to this galaxy in that there's not really any shelter around here, but we could always just like dig a hole in this little hill here to live out of, so maybe not a pretty way of living, but it is actually a way of living, which is, as you will soon find, much more than I can say about most of the galaxies in this game, just like the Sky Station Galaxy, the very first galaxy in the game. Why didn't I start the video with the start of the game? Well, it would be very boring. There's green grass here, which implies rain or some kind of water source near here, but there's not actually any liquid water available in this level to the player. It is, of course, possible that there's some kind of precipitation around here occasionally, but we're not going to be making any assumptions about things we don't see or have evidence of actually existing. Based on what we can actually find in this level, you are doomed to dehydration, and that's actually a major problem through most of the game. Most galaxies in Super Mario Galaxy, even the ones that have life in them, simply do not have a reliable source of water. And humans are little bitches who constantly need to slurp that wet stuff down, or else they just die after like 3, maybe 4 days if they're lucky. And don't go down in my comment section going, oh, I can do it. I'm built different. I know what you are. A bitch. You're a bitch. Imagine being a creature that's just entirely dependent on the environment being wet enough for them to live. Pathetic. What that does mean, however, is that there's going to be a number of galaxies we can just knock off the survivability list immediately, though, including Flip Swap Galaxy, Flip Out Galaxy, Right Side Down Galaxy, Boulder Bowl Galaxy, Bowser Jr.'s Fearsome Fleet, Bowser Jr.'s Fiery Flotilla, Mario Squared Galaxy, Beat Block Galaxy, Slip Sand Galaxy, Space Storm Galaxy, Spin Dig Galaxy, Rolling Coaster Galaxy, Tall Trunk Galaxy, Clock Tower Ruins Galaxy, Battle Belt Galaxy, Upside Dizzy Galaxy, Boom Moon Galaxy, Haunty Halls Galaxy, Flash Black Galaxy. Who the fuck keeps building all these haunted mansions floating in the middle of space? Rolling Masterpiece Galaxy. You think we can drink paint? Cause he ain't drinking water. Flipsville Galaxy. No drink wet. Twisty Trials Galaxy. It's the secret level for Mario Sunshine. And there's still no water. Melty Monster Galaxy. It is all lava and monsters. You're not only dying of dehydration, you're drying the fuck out like a prune and dying of a heat stroke in like 2 hours tops. Chompworks Galaxy. No water, but a lot of lava, which is, again, that is worse than having just nothing. Bowser's Lava Lair. We just went over lava. Fleeklike Galaxy. Once again, lava. Sweet Mystery Galaxy. All the food you can never eat, still no water. Although, even if there was water, this food is no good when it's just all candy. When I was younger, I once ate 5 pounds of molten milk balls in a single day. Now in my twilight years, I ate a 1/4 pound of chocolate and feel sick for 2. I don't think I could live long here even if there was water. And you know what the worst part about all these places we're going to dehydrate in is? That wasn't even the full list. These are just the ones I didn't have anything interesting to say about. Later on, you're going to find even more places we can't even hope to find water in. But for now, if you want to look at one of the better galaxies to live in, well, sometimes your galaxy isn't even a galaxy. It's just some dude's face. Welcome to the Face Ship, our hub world for Super Mario Galaxy 2. Now, technically, when you arrive, the Face Ship doesn't look like a face at all. It's just a kind of planetoid, but since we're starting all these evaluations based on where you gain control of Mario rather than the random point in space where he spawns in initially, I'm going to say that we show up post-refacing of the ship. Did you know that they retconned a new storybook into Mario Galaxy 2 when they re-released it for Nintendo Switch 2? I won't spoil the ending because there isn't one. The story just kind of eventually stops moving forward with no real conclusion for some reason, but it's a story about finding meaning in love, or maybe love overcoming nihilism. I don't really know, man. This one was above my reading level. But the story has 2 revelations involving Lubba here. The first, it turns out Lubba is a woman. So I'm gonna have to edit this in for the rest of the video now. Thanks for that, Nintendo. And 2, we finally, over 15 years after this game's initial release, know why Lubba is so fat. Turns out she can't turn into a planet or star like all the other Luma. So instead, she just keeps eating star bits and kinda sits around forever. Does this affect her survival? No. I just thought it was interesting and didn't really know when else to bring it up. Anyway, what is there for us here? Right off the bat, we do have what at first glance appears to be a stream of water. Look closely though, and this water isn't actually flowing. It's really just a long puddle in the shape of a stream. Now, the big problem with this water is you can't really tell how much there is here because it's flowing from inside the ship and we have no way of knowing how much is actually in there, or if that amount will be enough to keep us alive. But the real problem on this ship is going to be finding food because there isn't any. At least not any food that we can see. In fact, considering that Luma probably aren't even edible due to the fact that they're pretty much just protostars, the only edible thing visible on this entire ship isn't even on the ship itself. It's above it, the seagulls. We're going to have to catch and eat the seagulls. Now, I honestly don't even think this is a viable short-term solution. Birds are pretty smart, and short of just chucking shit at them and praying we hit them, I don't think we have a reliable way of hunting these things, seeing as they never seem to land on the ship itself. So, I think based on what we can see here, we're on track to starve in pretty short order. But what about things we can't see here? There are, after all, several compartments of the ship we're never allowed to see inside throughout the course of the game. But like, there's obviously something in there. Plus, every time you visit a galaxy with a new little critter in it, one of them gets added onto the face ship permanently as a crew member. And it's not like they're starving to death up here. There's even some teacups full of tea sitting out on the deck, implying that there's at least a water heater of some sort that we just can't see somewhere. In all likelihood, there's probably a fully stocked kitchen with all the materials we need in order to survive. It's just never shown in game, and thus I can't prove that it exists. But what I can prove, however, is that we are on a functioning spaceship. So, you know, we can just leave and go look for food and water elsewhere. Now, the ship can't go too far at the beginning of the game, only to a couple of nearby solar systems, but like, there's like a big blue planet with fluffy white clouds right beneath us. We can try looking there. I'm like 99% sure we're gonna find water down there at the very least. Hell, given how every single system in this game seems to have some sort of life in it, there's a pretty good chance we'll find something down there we can put in our mouths. Just having the option to go somewhere really gives us an unimaginable number of opportunities to work with. Now, usually when I evaluate a level to see if it's survivable, I do like to say that you can't leave the level you start in. Not typically a rule that comes up in Mario Galaxy, because like, good luck leaving this rock floating in the middle of the void, idiot. But if we're taking the whole level with us, does it really count as leaving? Hell, even if we want to be strict about that rule and say you can't leave the ship itself, we could always just befriend Lubba here, fly over to Yoshi Star Galaxy, and then be like, hey buddy, can you grab that Yoshi egg for us? Pretty please? Bring that bad boy back to the ship and we just solve this level the same way we solved the last one. Lubba flies this ship around trying to help other Luma anyway, so she might actually be open to helping us stay alive here too. The possibilities are really just as limited as your imagination. Absolute worst case scenario. If you don't like the idea of flying the ship around, you're probably gonna die of starvation once the seagulls figure out to stay away from you. But in reality, survival is trivial when you have entire planets worth of resources within your reach. So, I'm going to put the face ship down as an easily survivable location. Now, I don't see like a good place to sleep or anything, so it might be a little bit uncomfortable, but even if there's not a bed hidden somewhere, at the very least, we can sleep inside on the floor of the power-up room. So, certainly not the most uncomfortable place in the universe either. You want to see a place that's actually a bit uncomfortable, though? Welcome to Fluffy Bluff Galaxy, where I have no idea what this level is supposed to be. Some kind of mountain, canyon, water feature in a garden thing? Like, pick one theme, Nintendo. But these water fountains do provide us with all the water we'll ever need, and there's a number of yummy little critters running around which we can use to perpetuate our meaningless existences with for a bit. Now, unfortunately, there is a limit to how far a human could go in this level. While this cloud power-up would let us climb up vertically a bit, conceivably all the way up to this cliffside, giving us access to a few extra enemies, progressing any further in this level would require us to traverse this giant fucking canyon, which, even if we could do that, what are we gonna do with the bottom of this cliff? You can't wall jump out of here like Mario. That was a one-way trip. This here is as practically as far as we'll ever be able to go on this level. So, what do we have for food in this area we're stuck to? Well, we have 2 piranha plants, 3 of these giant birds, and of course, one of these little space Goomba things. Octumbas. They're called Octumbas because they're like octopi, but with only 3 legs. Tritumbas? Whatever. We're gonna eat these things. We also have these cute little wooden dudes in this level. They're called whittles. You know, cause wood. Very funny. Thank you, Shiggy. I love them. Now, I don't think we can eat guys who are made out of wood, but that doesn't mean they can't help us survive. Now, cooking any meat we find is going to be very important for our survival chances. Normally, once you kill an animal, the carcass begins to rot super quickly, becoming inedible to humans in only just a few short hours. Once we kill these birds, you gotta get eating immediately. But by cooking the meat, it goes from lasting about 2 hours to about 2 days, which is Still not a lot of time in the grand scheme of things, but given the fact that we're roasting birds the size of a particularly rotund Italian, we're going to need all the time we can get to eat these things. But how much bird can we throat in just 2 days? Well, unfortunately, there does exist a limit to how much food the human body can digest in a day, and it's way less than what you can actually shove down your throat. How many calories your body can process in a day varies by the type of food you eat, but protein-heavy meals such as this have some of the lowest limits, maxing out at about 6,000 to 8,000 calories per day, or just 3 to 4 days of nutrients for your average person. Meaning, for that each of these comically sized chunks of meat we have here for ourselves, we can probably only absorb about 8 days worth of nutrients tops before what we've cooked begins to rot. However, I have one final trick to extend our food supply here. By carefully ripping the wings off these birds and cauterizing the wounds with the fire, we may just be able to keep them alive a few extra days while we eat their limbs, thus extending the time we have our food supply for. Now, of course, these birds are more or less immobile once they lose one wing, and birds aren't exactly known for being durable little critters in the first place. So there's a chance they just die immediately. But if we keep giving them water while they lie helplessly on the grounds, hopefully we can make them last long enough for us to eat them. Under an absolute best case scenario, these birds have 2 limbs each, giving us 3 servings of food lasting 2 days each. These piranha plants, I mean, we can't really eat their limbs, but they do have 1 big tongue, worth at least 1 big serving of meat. And finally, the octoombas have 3 legs, which I'm assuming under the best case scenario gives us 4 servings. In reality, there is a good chance that all these animals just die the moment we cut off any of their limbs. Not exactly an easy thing to survive, but assuming 8 days worth of nutrients for each chunk we rip off those bones, we're looking at a grand total of 120 days worth of nutrition from these guys. Again, that is our best case scenario. If these things all die from the trauma of losing a limb, we're only getting 24 days worth of food. But either way, without any sustainable source of nutrition like a harvestable plant or dinosaur, death is inevitable in this canyon, mountain, garden, cloud thingy. Moving on to Puzzle Plank Galaxy, you're going to die of dehydration, but not because there isn't any water. Now, to get to that water, you do have to ground pound to progress off this first planetoid. Normally, humans don't produce a lot of force doing a ground pound, but if you just kind of jump up and do a double kick to sort of slam your feet into the ground, I bet you could accomplish the same thing. Now, could you survive this fall? Probably not, but if you want to bullshit and say you can, you then just need to collect 70 golden coins and feed it to this fat greedy fuck, who will then transform into an island with all the water we'd need to survive. Problem. He also transformed into an island with this giant fuck-ass beetle, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't think we could kill that thing. Dick move, by the way. I literally just gave you a massively expensive meal that you asked for, and then you create a man-eating monster as thanks. Like, what the actual fuck is this guy's problem? Regardless, it's time to move on to Hightail Falls Galaxy. You see that level icon? This galaxy has water aplenty, more than any other level we've seen so far. And all of that water is like 3,000 feet away, and you're stuck floating in the sky. There's no water here on the level itself, just in every direction you look around it. Probably the most frustrating place you'll ever dehydrate to death in. How about we actually take a look at a level we can actually drink something in? Honey Bloom Galaxy. There is no honey in Honey Bloom Galaxy. At least not that we can see or reach. Bit of a misleading name, but we do have water aplenty. Small problem, due to where we spawn in on this level. In order to get to that water, or anything, including solid ground to stand on for that matter, we are going to have to grab this vine, do a sick little slide and dismount flip onto this platform. If you can't do that, you do fall to your death, but as long as you can do that, you're good to go. After that though, this level is surprisingly easy to navigate. Mario uses wall jumps to go up and down levels here, but that's just because he's a bit of a show-off. We can just use these planks as ladders, allowing us to traverse what would otherwise be an insurmountable cliff face with relative ease. Now there is this gap you normally have to jump over, which might be a bit problematic, but you could always just rip some of the planks out of the walls. You don't need to go up or down in order to build a ramp to reach up there. So, not a major issue. What is a major issue, however, is there is eventually a point of no return if you go too far in the level, bringing you to this bouncy grape section. There is no water in this level after this point, and despite the fact that these grapes probably have more than a lifetime supply of juice in them, they are just so goddamn bouncy that even if Mario just taps these things, they send them flying, meaning that collecting juice is likely impossible. Also, you gotta do an absolutely insane jump off one of these vines, and well, I just don't think a human could do this. We're already stretching the plausibility here, saying that we could survive the first vine on the way into the level. So we're going to be sticking to this first section of the galaxy. Here we have 3 Goombas, along with these 3 giant propeller guys here. Normally Mario can't kill these propeller guys, but I bet I could get a good stab in on them if I pulled a big nail out of one of those boards in the wall and fly up to them using a bee suit. So I'll be generous here and say that killing them is possible. However, the downside of stabbing these things out of the sky is that typically a big hole in an animal's abdomen is considered fatal, meaning that we only have a couple of hours to start cooking and eating these things once we take them down. These 3 plump propeller piggies give us each one nice chunk of meat, worth 8 days of nutrition. These Goombas are even easier, since they're already on the ground, and we can start working on the limbs while keeping the main body alive. We could probably get a nice juicy 24 days worth of nutrients out of each of them, bringing us to a grand total of 72 days worth of food from all of these enemies combined. There's also a good number of bees, but do not try to eat the bees. They are armed and part of a larger militarized colony. If one bee screams, the rest are gonna come running, and people already have a big enough problem trying to fight bees in real life where they're only 1 inch tall. These things are like 4.5 feet tall and possess human level intelligence. We're not killing one of these things and living to tell the tale. We have 2.5 months worth of food tops. After that, if you're feeling desperate and adventurous, maybe you could go to the grape section and stab one of these grapes with a stick for a bit more nutrition, but you can't live off just grapes for the rest of your life. Your body would run out of proteins after about a month, and your fate, although postponed, would remain the same. But that's enough about these bees for now, because it's time to glide on over to Wild Glide Galaxy, a galaxy all about gliding. As you can see, there's plenty of water around here. Now, normally Mario can't go down to the water, but Mario is a fucking goody two-shoe that refuses to go off the path Nintendo sets for him to follow. He is a coward, and we can climb down this scaffolding no problem and get all the wet we could ever ask for. Now, the real problem here is going to be food. There are, of course, 3 birds to eat, but at least 2 of these are capable of speech, and presumably are more intelligent than your average bird, and birds are already pretty intelligent creatures. Once we kill them, the other 2 will act accordingly, and those are some long claws on the big guy. I mean, we could always try to kill the big guy first, but even these little birds are like 4 or 5 feet tall. Like, even in the scenario we get the drop on one of these guys, the other 2 could probably team up and take us out fairly easily. Maybe there's a world where someone smarter or stronger than me manages to take out these 3 giant birds. But we know from the second star on this level that there's more out there somewhere. They got backup. I just don't think eating them is going to be an option, which really sucks because they're the only edible thing here in this level. Like, this is a jungle. There's probably food out there or something. And I mean, these birds have to be eating something too. I just don't see any of that food in the level itself. And people starve to death in the woods all the time. So while there's a chance this place could be survivable, until I actually see evidence of that, I'm going to have to put this galaxy down in the starvation category. If you want a galaxy that actually has some meat on its bones though, I've got just the place. Cosmic Cove. Cosmic Cove is honestly a pretty straightforward level. Half the planet is covered in water, so check that off the list. And see that turtle? Kill it, and another one just spawns on in. I have no idea what kind of space-time bullshit is unfolding before us, but I do know that in many places turtle soup is considered a delicacy. Hell, even if you don't care for turtle, as long as you can stomach seafood, you're all set here. There's fish, other fish, these fish too, seaweed for some essential vitamins and minerals, and even some giant pond skaters here as well. Plenty of options for your hungry survivalist ass. The biggest problem we might face is that while there is water everywhere, it does seem very ocean-coated and possibly salty. But even then, moving water like what's coming out of these waterfalls here is almost always fresh. In fact, I couldn't find a single example of a saltwater waterfall anywhere on Earth, which makes sense if you think about it. Water needs to actually absorbs salt before becoming salty. It doesn't come out of the sky with salt in it. So, unless it's moving directly over a salt flat or something, a river typically has too much water flowing too fast to really accumulate any significant amount of salt before arriving at the ocean. It would take a very strange geological phenomenon for a saltwater waterfall to occur naturally. But while our basic needs for survival are certainly being met here, shelter in this level may be a little bit harder to come by. Sure, there's dry land for us here to rest on, and with a bit of patience, we could dry some kelp and weave it together to make like a blanket or a makeshift tent even, but it would still be a rather miserable experience. So, although a survivable one, Cosmic Cove would be a dreary place to live, even if it can support us for as long as we naturally live. But with that, it's time to take a look at a place that doesn't do that. Cloud Court is another beautiful grassy garden level in the vein of Fluffy Bluff Galaxy. Unlike Fluffy Bluff, however, there is no liquid water here whatsoever. The only water we have access to is instead trapped in these clouds. So the question is, do these clouds have enough water to sustain us? Well, they respawn the moment they're destroyed, so technically we have all the water we ever want here. Have you ever been in a cloud before though? I mean, you probably have, considering that's what fog is. Can you drink fog? Not really. In fact, your average cloud only has about 0.3 milliliters of water in every cubic meter of space. Do a little math, and that works out to 1 gallon in every 12,618 cubic meters of cloud. As a 23 meter foot wide cube of cloud we need in our mouths every single day. To further put into perspective just what a Herculean task that is, from what I could find, your average mouthful is up to 71 milliliters, and we need to suck down 12,618,000,000 milliliters every day. That is 177,718,873 large mouthfuls of cloud. A lot of people say you don't need to drink a full gallon of water every day, but a lot of people also apparently don't understand what a sweaty little bitch I am. If anything, I need even more than a gallon, which we're clearly not getting. Now, I did look around to see if there was a more reliable way to collect this water from the air, and it turns out there is such a thing as a fog collector. All you really need to build them is a big mesh net and some sticks to hang the net on. Now, the problem for us though is I don't have that much fabric, and these clouds do not move. They wouldn't even go through our non-existent fog collector even if we had one. We're going to be dying of dehydration in this level, and there's nothing we can really do about that. But there's still one other form of water we haven't taken a look at yet, and there's plenty of it to be found in Freezy Flake Galaxy. Freezy Flake Galaxy is our first snow level in the game. And while snow does offer easy access to water, it also freezes you. Turns out ice is bad for humans. Not only do they constantly need water, it turns out if you give it to them at the wrong temperature, they just die anyway. Picky bastards. We're going to have to find some way to stay warm. Now, there is this log cabin, which, judging by the smoke coming out of the top, does have a lit fire in it, but this fucking rabbit is keeping us locked outside because he's scared of these Goomba snow statues. Statues which aren't really doing anything. They're just kind of sitting there menacingly. Fortunately for us, however, there does exist an alternative outside. This fire flower. Now, fire flowers are great for 3 reasons. 1, they give our hands the ability to generate fire, and more importantly, heat to keep ourselves warm in the cold. 2, as soon as you lose the power up, it just respawns, allowing us to immediately regain our heat source. Meaning, if we just sit on top of this thing, we just stay warm forever. And reason 3, I love these things, because we can use it to burn down this wooden house and get our hands on that bitch-ass rabbit who left us out in the cold. Now, since rabbits are real-life animals, you can actually go and set on fire right now. We have a lot of nutritional data on what we can expect to get from this guy. Now, this star rabbit, of course, is a bit larger than your normal bunny, but with a bit of measuring, I found him to be about 2.9 times the length of a normal rabbit and roughly 25.5 times the weight and volume, which, based on the nutritional data from your average snow hare, gives us 54 pounds of edible meat worth 23,771 calories, or just under 12 days of food. Normally, that would be impossible for us to eat. Here, however, the snow acts as a perfect preservation material, meaning we get to enjoy every last bite of this little shit before running out of food on this planetoid, at which point we can simply move forward to the next one. Now, some people may have problems with the idea of a normal human using a warp star, but considering warp stars have been shown to shoot Mario into entirely different solar systems at a fraction the speed of light without killing him, I imagine whatever magic they have going going on protects the people that use them. So I'm assuming that we can use them too. Very convenient, I know. Because now that we're out of food, we can just hop into this warp star and begin the cycle anew with yet another rabbit along with this Goomba. Now to figure out how long we're gonna last, we're gonna have to figure out how long this Goomba is going to last. Goombas in Mario Galaxy come in a variety of sizes. Two. They come in two sizes. One of them a little bit larger than the other. But these smaller ones are about 28% taller than Mario, and since we know from official Nintendo sources that Mario is 155 centimeters tall, we can easily determine that the Goombas in this game are about 199 centimeters tall, or 6'5", and almost 6'1" across. Absolutely fucking massive creatures. After taking some time to measure out all the Goomba's body parts and doing some basic geometry, I found there to be about 2,634,885 cubic centimeters of Goomba here for us to eat. Now that, of course, is the full volume of this model. I didn't account for any body cavities or bones or anything. I know a lot of people complain that I don't account for bones in the Goombas, but creatures with bones in them typically don't do this. So I feel pretty confident in saying that we can eat almost everything in these guys. And since Goombas are based on shiitake mushrooms, I will of course be assuming that they have the exact same nutritional value as one, with no differences whatsoever, despite the fact that they walk around and go to college and stuff. According to the Food and Drug Administration, one serving of shiitake mushroom is 236.59 cubic centimeters, 6 calories, and 240 grams. With a bit of math and the volume we previously calculated, we find that these Goombas have about 668,215 calories in them, or about 334 days of food, bringing us to a grand total of 346 days worth of meat on this second planetoid. With all this time we have here, and an easy source of heat, we may even be able to build a simple igloo for ourselves for some shelter. So despite the cold, not too bad of a place to live, at least while we have food. We're gonna need to find more eventually. We got these little rock guys floating around here, but I don't think we can eat rocks, so I think this is going to be a limit of what we can do on this planetoid. But we're still not done with this galaxy. Slide down this slide behind the statue and blow up a few more snow blocks, and we can eventually reach this lava lake, where, after some careful navigation, we can eventually get to and break this box containing one final rabbit. Just stick its body in the snowball here and we'll be able to survive another final 12 days, no problem. Now I am going to say that this fire flower is a bit too far out of the way for a normal human to be able to conceivably reach, so our strategy for staying warm during this time is going to be a little bit different here. Fortunately, staying warm is pretty easy when there's a lake of lava right here. Now there is still snow on the ground, so we know that most of the air here is still cold, but I'm sure if you stand close enough to the lava, it at least gets a little bit warmer. You know when you're next to a fire outside on a winter's day and one half of your body is freezing while the other half is burning hot? Yeah, that's the kind of life I'm looking to live for the next 60 days or however long it takes to starve to death. Not quite as comfortable as the last planetoid, but with 3 rabbits and 1 Goomba, we have roughly 370 days worth of nutrition here for us. Not gonna last forever, but it is enough food here for me to put Freezy Flight Galaxy down as at least temporarily survivable. That's enough of living off these little guys though. What if we checked out the big ones? Super massive galaxy. There is no water, which is a shame because barring respawning enemies, this level probably has more meat readily available for us than any other level in any game. Just look at that guy, absolutely massive. So just for fun, I calculated just how much meat is in one of these Goombas. They're about 7.3 Marios tall, or 11.3 meters in height, and since they have the same proportions as a regular Goomba, we just need to take the cube of the height ratio between the two to find the volume ratio between them, which works out to 167 times the volume. That's 482,428,350 cubic centimeters, or 122,346,717 kilocalories, which works out to 61,173 days worth of food. Now, I don't think there is any scenario where you could keep that much meat properly preserved for 1.5 centuries. But if you're ever stuck in here with 200,000 friends, you know where to find a good meal. Onwards to Honey Hop Galaxy, we have our second honey level, and the first one that actually has any honey in it. Plenty of water around here, check that off the list. But things are gonna get pretty interesting in this level when it comes to food. On this first planet we spawn on, we have 2 piranha plants, 3 propeller guys, and 2 pink octumbas, normally worth 104 days of nutrients, assuming we could cook everything with the wood we find around the level. But here's where a twist comes in. A lot of people have been telling me you can use honey as a preservative, and turns out that's actually true, but the actual effectiveness is A little inconsistent though. According to my research, honey can preserve dry food such as root vegetables and dried fruit fairly well, but meat seems to be another matter entirely. The biggest stumbling block is that while honey is good at keeping things dry and stopping bacteria from getting on whatever's in there, it cannot kill bacteria that is already in a piece of meat we place in there. And because of this, nearly every source I read agrees that honey pretty much does nothing to preserve raw meat. Nearly. I did find one absolutely terrible source that said raw meat submerged in honey can stay edible for up to a year. But this source was just some YouTube channel which I'm pretty sure is AI generated. They also said that honey was more trustworthy than modern preservatives because people used honey for like 1,000 years while modern preservatives have only been used for like 100, which, putting aside the fact that this guy probably did his research at the end of a crack pipe, from about 10,000 years ago up till 4,000 years ago, humans used to do this thing called trepanation, where they would drill holes into your skull to let the demons out of your brain. So, maybe doing something for thousands of years isn't exactly a sign that it's good for you, but I'm also just some YouTuber, so what the fuck do I know? Go ahead and get drilling, kids. Sounds like a great prank to pull on whoever falls asleep first at the sleepover. Sticking to reliable sources, honey will give cooked meat an extra day or two of shelf life at best. While not a lot of extra time, this is still useful to us, potentially doubling the amount of food we can eat, bringing us from 104 days worth of nutrition all the way to 208. Pretty nice, but not a substantial improvement in the grand scheme of things. We're going to have to be a little riskier if we want to see some real improvement. So, from this point forward, we're going to be looking at a hypothetical best case scenario. Obviously, raw meat can't be stored for a year, but if something like a root vegetable that's entirely dry can be, let's just, and I have no evidence of this actually being possible, say that a perfectly dry meat like jerky could be stored like that as well. But jerky is fairly difficult to make on your own. You have to be able to slice up the meat nice and thin, and you have to be able to dry it over a fire for a long period of time while adding some sort of a curing agent such as salt. Now, we don't have anything that even resembles a knife here, but if we just happen to find that stuff under a rock or something, you could make some jerky in theory, and that jerky could then be stored in honey, much in the same way a dry root vegetable would be. Assuming that we can make each of these guys last for up to a year in that honey, and we can only kill one at a time, and none of them die while we're trying to eat the other ones, how long could we stretch out our food supply? First of all, we're going to have to figure out how much food we have in each of these guys, just to make sure there's actually a year's worth of meat to preserve in each of them. Let's start off with the propeller guys. Now, fortunately for me, they're very round, which makes them very easy to estimate the size of. Using the formula for a sphere, I found that we have about 5,350,301 cubic centimeters of guy in this guy. The hard part about him is trying to figure out how many calories that translates to, because I mean, what kind of animal is that? My friend said he looked like a prickly pear cactus, my favorite animal. And you know what? I kinda see it. He is pretty spiky, and prickly pear cactus is edible. I mean, it's not like a particularly calorie-dense food, with only 61 calories in every 236 cubic centimeters, meaning that despite his size, we only have 1,379,480 calories in this guy, or 689 days worth of food, well beyond our limit of what we said we can preserve anything for. So, we'll just say that we get 1 year's worth of food for each of the big boys here. The Octoombas are a little bit harder to measure, but they're basically one big sphere for the body and then 3 little ones for the feet, and after measuring everything against Mario, I found them to be about 2,006,712 cubic centimeters. It is kind of hard to say what kind of animal a very generic space alien is based off of, but the name Octoomba does sound like octopus, so I used the nutritional information for an octopus here. Is that scientific? It's about as scientific as everything else I've done so far, so don't worry too much about it. Octopus are, believe it or not, a bit more calorie dense than a plant that lives in the desert. So despite being a much smaller creature, the Octoombas come in with slightly more nutritional value at 1,432,792 calories worth of food, which, if we could eat it all, would last 716 days. Again, confirming that they'll last the full year we can preserve them for. Now, the final enemy we have to look at are the piranha plants. Canonically, these things have tongues, and I think that's really the only part of them we could eat. The rest of the piranha plant is is based on ivy, and you can't really eat ivy. Well, I guess you can eat anything if you're not a little bitch about it, but you can't get any nutrition from ivy. And as we've previously established, all of us are little bitches here anyway, so it's kind of a moot point. Anyway, in Mario Galaxy, we can't see the tongues on these little guys, so we're gonna have to do a little bit of extra homework. After looking at a wide variety of piranha plant models they've used over the years, the tongue seems to go back about halfway through their mouth and is about as thick as one of their lips. Also maybe about 50% as wide as their head. It varies a lot, but since we know its length, width, and thickness, this'll give us a good ballpark estimate. I found the head of the average piranha plant here to be about 138 centimeters across, with the lips being just under 26 centimeters thick, giving us a very rough volume of 64,709 cubic centimeters of meat. To calculate the calorie count, I just used cow tongue since it's the only tongue I know people eat, which brought us up to 195,653 calories, or just under 98 days worth of food. But that is just the meat. The honey we're putting into this meat is still full of sugar after all, meaning we only need to be making sure that we're getting all the essential nutrients we need out of this tongue. Nutrients such as protein, which honey is severely lacking in. The average 6'2" human my size needs about 65 grams of protein at minimum every day, meaning that so long as we don't have to worry about getting all of our calories from it, these tongues will actually let us survive for just over 188 days, almost twice as long. So, using our 2 piranha plants, 2 octumbas, and 3 fat fluttering fucks, we have enough food to last us 2,202 days, or just over 6 years. Once we do finally run out of food here though, we're still not done with this galaxy, because by using both the bee suit and this flower as a glider, there is a second floating island we can reach, home of the bee queen herself, who got an ass so fat it has its own gravitational pull. Now there is again plenty of water here, but the big issue with this second island is that we don't actually have access to any honey here, and we can't go back to get any either. So we're back to using our normal estimates for how long we can make all the food here last. So what does that food consist of? Well, we have a whopping 15 pink octumbas, 1 blue octumba, and 8 4-legged beetles, which, assuming we rip off all their limbs just right, can sustain us for a grand total of 704 extra days. Combining that with our first planet, this brings our total food supply up to somewhere between 808 days under our most likely scenario, all the way up to 3,010 days if we bullshit our way into perfectly preserving a bunch of jerky we don't know how to make. Honestly, with all this time we have, we may even be able to get all these octumba to breed or something. But I don't know. They're aliens. I don't really know how they work. For all I know, they have 5 sexes and take 14 years to reproduce. So I'm not going to bother speculating with that. As far as I'm concerned, this level is temporarily survivable. If you want to see a place that's actually survivable, you're going to want to take a look at our next level, the Starshine Beach Galaxy. I'm just gonna say it. This is probably the best galaxy in the game. Full stop. First off, we have a Yoshi egg for ourselves right here if you're in the mood for some dino meat, but you don't even have to worry about killing Yoshis this time around, because our old Super Mario Sunshine friends, the Piantas, have a nice lore drop for us, revealing that all of these fruit are edible. Most importantly, these spicy peppers that constantly respawn after being consumed. Now these things are pretty spicy. They set Yoshi's mouth on fire as soon as he eats them, but the Pianta imply that they eat them just fine. And I ain't your grandma's Caucasian. I live for the heat. I think I could handle this just fine. And if you aren't into spice, that's a-okay. It'll be a little bit harder to get, but there's plenty of fish in the ocean to drag up, and these Lakitu keep spawning in, providing yet another source of meat that you don't have to worry about running out of. And of course, you can also eat these pink fruit and the constantly respawning air fruit as well. We are not at a lack of options here. On top of that, water shouldn't be a problem either, because even assuming all this water is salty, there is, for some inexplicable reason, a random ass water gun squirting off the tip of this tower over here. So we can always just catch that water and use it for the drinking. Now, in theory, that could also be salt water, but salt water tends to destroy machinery relatively quickly and is typically not used in water features like this, so it is almost certainly fresh. But with all this fruit juice around, I don't even think it matters if we have access to a direct freshwater source or not. All of that, along with this little roofed area with a bench for us to sleep under, and Sunshine Galaxy is not only looking survivable, but like it could be one of the most comfortable places to live in all of Super Mario Galaxy 2. I mean, it's not like we have a bed or anything. We're basically sleeping on a bench in the equivalent of a bus shelter. But it's still certainly better than almost every other galaxy in the game that was built with zero consideration for human habitability whatsoever. You know, like our next level, Bowser's Gravity Gauntlet. Now, unlike most boss levels, we actually have something to talk about here, because this level is home to an absolutely massive water segment that could easily quench our thirst for the rest of our meaningless lives. Getting to this water, however, will not be easy, as not only do we have to navigate all these lava pits, which, while certainly possible, would be difficult for your average human, but the way forward from spawn is blocked by not one, but two Kameks. Look, I have tremendous respect for wizards, and I am not worthy of claiming that I am the equal to a master of the arcane Goomba summoning arts. However, as previously discussed, it is conceivable that you could kill these guys. Grab a rock, hit them in the head, and we should be good to go. So I'm not going to put down this level as unsurvivable just because of them. Just understand that it's probably unsurvivable. I probably am not pulling off these kills here. But if you do manage to survive the fight with access to the water, how much food is there for us here to keep us going? Well, aside from the two Kamek, which we need to kill immediately for our own safety, we also have two fish in the water, which, I mean, look, fish slap human shit. They're just superior beings, and there's nothing you can do about that. Choosing to fight these guys on their own turf is, once again, probably unsurvivable. But the one saving grace about these fish is that, they're pretty dumb, and if you can get some kind of a pointed stick, like a metal staff or a rib, we might be able to get them to swim right into it as they move forward to attack us, stabbing themselves in the process. And if we manage to get past both them and the Kameks, which, I mean, we probably won't, but if you do, you then have two final Goombas you can access. You gotta make it past these thwomps to get to the Goombas, but I mean, you can actually just walk underneath them when they jump. It's not really too much of an issue as long as you're paying attention. So that brings us to two Kameks, two Cheep Cheeps, and two Goombas for food. But since we have to kill both the Kameks to even get to the water, we're not going to be rationing those two out like we are with everything else. After cooking the meat, we still only get 2 days worth of food from the two of them. The Cheep Cheeps last a bit longer as we only have to kill one at a time, giving us 4 days total. And the Goombas, assuming we can get them off their feet and their feet off of them, we can, under a best case scenario, expect 24 days worth of nutrients from each of them, bringing us to a grand total of 72 days worth of calories and protein from the enemies we have access to. Again, 9 out of 10 times you ain't pulling this off. I die in this level day one easily. But temporary survivability is at least a possibility here, which is more than I can say for every other boss level in the game. Up next though, we have a level with a very special gimmick, Shiverburn Galaxy, where we spawn in on a lava planet with no water. Right there you know we're doomed. If you think you got some mean jump rope skills, you can jump over these electrical shockwaves and get this cloud power up, with which I think you would be able to barely reach this button. Smack this thing down, and it turns this level from death by heat stroke into death by freezing. I don't even think that this is ice. Lava doesn't typically turn into that. Probably some kind of a frozen crystal. Either way though, freeze to death or burn to death. Pick your poison. The environment here is simply too extreme for your normal human to survive in. Up next though, Bowser Jr.'s Boom Bunker. This one's actually pretty simple. Just shoot yourself out of a cannon, grab onto this pole mid-flight, slide down, kill these two 10-foot tall turtles with projectile weapons, and then for your reward, you get no water. But that's enough dying of dehydration for the time being. Let's take a look at a level where we have actually something to drink for once, with the Throwback Galaxy, a remake of Whomp's Fortress from Mario 64. Before examining this galaxy though, let's take a look at it from space for a bit. First off, why does every galaxy in this game have a hazy double image around it on the world menu? Like, I bet this went hard when the game was in 480p on the Wii, but it makes me feel like I have a fucking concussion. And second, they fucked up the left side of the floating island in the preview icon. There's no staircase here in the actual level. Why did they even put that here? Someone had to actually sit down and make this model. Like, they made the conscious decision to just make something entirely different from the actual level. How do you fuck it up like that? But it's not only the world icon that has differences in it though. Once you set foot in the galaxy proper, you can see differences between this level and the N64 version everywhere you look. Enemies don't respawn like the original. The cannon's missing. King Whomp is now on the bottom of the level, but because space, Whomp's not blue. This isn't my Whomp's Fortress. Throwback Galaxy is not but a pale imitation of the original, but what does that mean for our survival odds? Let's start off with our water supply. Measuring a pool this large is always a little bit difficult, but fortunately, the bottom is lined with these regularly sized square tiles, which I found there to be about 1,358.5 of after counting them. Popping open Photoshop and comparing these tiles to our 155 centimeter tall Italian-American ruler, and I found them to be approximately 126.5 centimeters across, which gives this pool area a floor of 21,767,763 square centimeters. Multiply that by the estimated 27.7 centimeter water depth I found via the same method, and we're looking at 602,933,749 cubic centimeters of water, or 159,277 gallons. The original level had 132,215 gallons of water. Sloppy job. Despite the fact that the water in this remake doesn't even come up to Mario's knee, we somehow have even more water than the original. This pool is just way too big, but at a gallon per day, we're looking at about 436 years of water, more than we'll ever need. So, all we have to worry about here is food. We have some wood around, and in theory, we can dry grass to use as kindling, so cooking what food we have is possible. But so long as enemies aren't responding, we frankly don't have anywhere near enough food to last us those 436 years. Our time in this galaxy is sadly limited. But how much time do we have here? In Throwback Galaxy, there are 4 piranha plants, 5 Goombas, 2 pond skaters, a Wiggler, and 1 giant piranha plant. Now you'd think this 20-foot tall monster would be hard to kill, but it occasionally just lays its head on the ground and presents its weak spot, so I think you could probably take this guy if you wanted. Just hit it on the back of the head with a rock and you're good to go. And as we've previously discussed, we're getting 24 days of nutrients from each Goomba and Pond Skater, 8 days from each piranha plant, and then the Wigglers. Well, in my personal experience with ripping the limbs off of bugs, we can probably take about half their limbs before they're left immobile up here. But considering how much water something of this says probably needs to survive and how hard it would be to carry that water up here ourselves, even if it doesn't die from the trauma, it would probably die of dehydration not too long after we render it immobile. So I'm gonna say that we can probably take 3 legs off this thing safely before it dies, and then we can have one final meal once we come back in for the kill shot. So 32 days worth of nutrition for this guy under the best case scenario. Altogether, that brings us up to a total of 232 days worth of nutrients, so long as we manage to keep all these animals alive as long as possible while we consume them. After that, it'll take a month or 2 to starve to death properly, but death would still be an inevitability in this reused bit of content we're calling a galaxy. I mean, I guess death is inevitable in all the galaxies, but you know what I mean. We're losing the challenge here by dying of starvation instead of Alzheimer's or a stroke or cancer or something. Bowser's Galaxy Generator. Remember when I said that one boss level was the only one with any water in it? Yeah, so I just straight up lied. I'm not sorry. And honestly, it's your fault for listening to me, because Bowser's Galaxy Generator actually has some water in it too, but I mean, there's just no chance you're gonna be making it past these 3 hammer bros you need to kill in order to get to that water. You either need to hit them on top of their 8-foot tall heads, or knock them over somehow to hurt them, which I don't think we can do that while they're chucking 50-pound mallets at our own heads, but if you could kill these hammer bros and then cross this whole level full of other enemies and traps and then defeat Bowser in one-on-one combat twice, you would then be rewarded with access to this stupid, useless puddle at the very end of the galaxy. 1,470 gallons. Rosalina is here too for some reason. I mean, you know, cause story. Not that she was brought up earlier in the story, but you know, she's here because the story demanded it. It wasn't demanded at all. But she's here. So maybe she could save us from this planet. But then we'd be breaking the rule about leaving the galaxy. And this galaxy itself is still not survivable. The sheer amount of psychosexual damage this woman has done to our generation is unimaginable. I know someone whose favorite game growing up was Mario Galaxy, and now he only jerks off to giantess porn. Coincidence? I'm not so sure. Because whenever he gets run over by a Mega Mushroom in Mario Kart, he lets out a soft moan, which I simply choose to ignore, hoping that he'll stop. And yet, no matter how many times it happens, the moans continue. Anyway, Now that you too have been imparted with the burden of knowledge, it's time for Slimy Spring Galaxy, which is really living up to the name here. Just look at those goddamn walls. This place is moist, flowing even. Moisture coming out of the pipes, moisture coming out of the ceiling. We're at the very least not going thirsty here. Now normally you would have to worry about being able to cook in such a wet place, but fortunately, we do have some fires conveniently stationed at the end of this cavern we spawn in, along with 2 giant-ass bats. Now, there's quite literally nothing in this cave we can use as a weapon against these bats. So if you can't kill them with your bare hands, you're gonna have a serious problem here. And of course, by serious problem, I do mean you're gonna die. But if you're just that kind of beast who can kill 2 5-foot-tall flying monsters with your bare hands, you do at least get a few days worth of food. Of course, the problem with this food is since they're both flying around our heat source that we need to use in order to cook the meat, you probably need to kill both these bats at the same time, meaning that we don't get to ration our bat meat out. You may get lucky just breaking their wing, leaving them alive and immobile on the grounds, but I think in most scenarios you're only getting 2 days until all the meat here begins to rot, leaving us with only 8 days worth of nutrition in this cavern. But fortunately, this cavern is not the end of the level. Thanks to these well-positioned green shells which remove the need for us to swim on our own, we can navigate all the way to the end of this level, where we have a nice grassy place to rest, along with a friendly little toad who can help us with our food problem. At least that's what I would normally say, if not for one little problem. While most of this level can be navigated by a regular human no problem, I even held my breath in real life just to make sure I could hold it for longer than Mario does here. There's one segment that is absolutely impossible. That segment being right here where we are expected to drop 200 feet into a second cave and right into another pool of water. For some perspective, the world record for a high dive was performed in 2015 by Laszlo Schaller, who managed to safely land in a pool after falling a whopping 193 feet. So it's conceivable that someone might be able to do this dive. However, Lasso is a professional diver, and I am a professional clown on the internet. Most people die after falling just like 50 feet into water. If you don't hold your body in just the right shape to pierce through the surface of the water, it's like falling into concrete. Most of us aren't making it to the end of this level, and we're going to be starving to death in just a few short days. Not great. You never want to die of starvation. So let's mix it up for the next galaxy. You know what we haven't done in a while? Diet of Dehydration, Stone Cycle Galaxy. It's the level from Mario Galaxy 1. They have reused a level from every 3D Mario game that came before this, haven't they? Now this level does actually have some water. However, I don't think there's any good way to actually go get it though. It's a bit out of reach standing on these platforms, and it's a one-way trip down if you do go get it. So this level is no good. Enough reused levels though, because it's time for reused bosses. Boss Blitz Galaxy, where we get to fight all the bosses from Mario Galaxy 1 back to back to back to back. Not only is there no water, but I don't think we can even throw this guy's tail out like Mario can. Meaning, we can't hurt him, and we're stuck on this planetoid with this walking dinosaur egg, which we cannot damage. If we fall asleep and this guy steps on us, we're done here. It's over. And I mean, sure, staying awake for 3 days is certainly possible, but doing that while moving around to stay away from him and suffering from dehydration? I don't think so. We're not making it a full 72 hours here. And that is every single level in the game, except for the secret finale. If you collect the 120 stars from this and every other galaxy in the game, and then go through every single level in the game a second time to collect another 120, you gain access to the secret final level, the Grand Master Galaxy, the final Mario Galaxy experience, the ultimate culmination of Mario platforming, and the greatest test of skill in any 3D Mario game up to this point. There is no water. Thank you for watching my stupid video about places we can't live in. This is kind of the first game where the Mario team really stopped caring about making levels that actually resemble real-life livable places for a while, and looking at this tier list, you can really see how that negatively impacted our survival chances here. But don't worry, because the next Mario game is going to be even worse, so make sure to like and subscribe for that. Let me know if you think any of these galaxies should be ranked differently. Commenting and smacking all the buttons around underneath the video helps support the channel as I dive deeper and deeper into increasingly niche analyses no one ever asked for. And a very special thank you to all of my channel members and supporters on Patreon. Your kindness and generosity shine as brilliantly as the stars in the sky. And I love you all. Alright, bye bye.